I lost my girlfriend to a religious cult, and I've watched this play out over the past 3 years. My ex-girlfriend is a Seventh-day Adventist, which is a branch of Christianity. I'll admit up front that I don't know a lot about Adventists, but from the anecdotes I've read from people who've left the church, they seem very cult-like and instill a grave fear of God into their followers. What I do know for sure is that they fostered an environment that pushed my ex's most toxic dormant beliefs to the forefront of her personality. I'm hoping that my words will help anyone who's experienced something similar to cope. Back in 2023, during my time when I was working off and on at a special ed school, I ended up meeting and started dating my first girlfriend. I'd never been in a serious relationship before this. I figured that I would just take things slow and figure out what I wanted, and how I would try to develop the relationship as I went along. I thought that she'd be okay with that too. In hindsight, the first red flag should have been sighted when I realized that despite being 4 years older than me, my ex was far more naive and sheltered than me, and almost a lifetime less worldly than me. She didn't really seem to understand how sexuality worked. During one of our first work dates, she told me that she'd been bisexual most of her life. That confused me because that's not how identity or sexuality works, but maybe she meant that she didn't realize that she was bi until after she started sexually maturing. Another thing that stood out to me was that she'd lost her mother at some point before meeting me. I can't speak on behalf of her, but it seemed like she was looking for a purpose in life after her mom died. She also had a strained relationship with her father that I think made her feel isolated. My mom even told me after meeting her that she felt the same way that I did, and that maybe she was using her faith as a way to try and make sense of things. Combine this with being raised Catholic whilst having a crisis of faith as to which branch of Christianity was correct, and this left her an easy target for anyone who might want to manipulate her. It was clear to me that religion was important to her. Some of the first things we did together was hang out at these religious meetings at people's houses. She mentioned God a lot, and it seemed clear to me that she'd had the teachings of the Bible heavily instilled into her upbringing, probably by her parents. She even been baptized twice at this point, once as a Catholic and once as a Christian. She'd be baptized a third time when she became a Seventh-day Adventist. I should have realized sooner that this wouldn't work between us. She even said within the first week of us being official that I had to convert to Christianity and go to church or that she couldn't be with me. I'm not a religious person by nature, and I don't believe that you need to be involved in organized religion to be a person of faith. But I carried on in hopes that maybe we could work out in spite of this. I gotta give her credit though. At least she was upfront from the start about what she wanted out of the relationship. Not a lot of people are like that. We lasted around 2 months. I tried to see things from her point of view, but I just couldn't make faith the entire center of my world, nor could I get over my distaste of organized religion. It was also around the end of our relationship that she started to fall down the dangerous and false rabbit hole that being gay or engaging in gay relationships was wrong and unnatural. I challenged her on this instantly. I don't know much about the Bible, but I think I know a thing or two about human behavior, having studied and practiced acting for as long as I have. Also, when you do theater, you meet a lot of queer people. When our arguments worsened, I agreed to interview a pastor she knew in front of her. I think we both hoped that my Q&A would be enough to sway the other over to their side, but it wasn't, and I broke up with her that night. This wasn't the end of things between us. The breakup was amicable, we agreed to stay friends, and we entered into a toxic on-again, off-again situationship before the two of us finally managed to move on. It wasn't until after this phase that she started to change for the worse. Flash forward sometime later after we finally gotten over each other, and things seemed like they might be going in a normal direction. However, by this point, she was fully entrenched in her faith as a Seventh-day Adventist. She got baptized a third time to show that she's fully invested in her place in this new church. I thought that 3 baptisms was a bit overkill, but that's her life, I guess. And I suppose there's no harm in getting another one if it makes her feel more welcome. This is where her behavior towards me starts to change, though. If I thought that she mentioned God a lot before, now it's at the center of everything, all the time. I could accomplish what felt like the most basic task to me, and she'd say, "Praise God." Everything was part of God's plan to the point of negating our free will. I did an acting showcase in LA last year as part of a class I was taking, and I told her about it because I was proud of my work. She told me, "Praise God for that." Not to step on her toes, but I'm pretty sure I'm the one that was on that stage.
The Lord provideth again.
No, Mac. No, the Lord not provideth. Frank provideth. He's the one who bought the cups. Frank provideth.
The Lord provideth the snowstorm in May that allowed us to get the cups now. See, it's all a part of his divine plan, Dennis, and that's locked in, so we're good.
I understand that's her faith, but something didn't sit right with me. It felt like even though we broke up a while back, that she was still trying to change me. My suspicions were correct, because this would lead me to the first of 2 incidents that made me realize that I'd lost her. One night, we're texting back and forth, just to check in on the other and see how we're doing. We started arguing over LGBTQ rights again. Before we broached this topic, she'd been on the fence about it, but it was clear to me now that she'd fully gone down the bigoted rabbit hole. She asked me not to bring it up around her because she's not an ally and didn't approve of their lifestyle. Common misconception: sexual identity is not a lifestyle. It's an integral part of that person's identity. Another misconception that I want to clear up now: being trans is not a lifestyle choice either. And if anyone watching this video wants to cry, "Oh, you made things political," or has a problem with gay, bi, trans, or any group of people that don't push a heteronormative world, get the fuck out of here, because he won't like my channel. This isn't a matter of political differences. It's a matter of people's right to exist. You don't have to understand it, but you need to allow them their place in the world just like you're allowed yours. Our argument continues from here, and I think we both realize that neither side will capitulate to the other. Then she decided to drop a verbal nuke on me that still hurts me to this day. She tells me that she still values our friendship, but that I need to get closer to God before it's too late. If I hadn't been laying back when I read that, I would have sunk into my seat. My heart dropped when I read that, because I could only interpret it one way. As of writing, I've never asked her to elaborate on what she meant, but I think anyone reading that could only interpret it the way I did. She thought I was going to hell. As a person who suffers from clinical depression and has dealt with intense guilt issues my whole life, this was earth-shattering. I've questioned my right to be alive over my mental health. She knew this about me too and still said it anyway. I got mad and left her on red after that. The worst part is that I don't think she was trying to hurt me. But how could I not be? In her eyes, no matter what I did, no matter how much I cared, no matter how much I tried to help people, in her worldview, I was still going to hell, all because I didn't practice what she preached. I don't recall us texting for a while after this, but I've never forgotten this conversation, and I don't think I ever will. For some reason, I pushed on with our friendship, and against my better judgment, hoped that I could still reach her. But it was too late, and this final incident would be the point where I realized that I'd lost her a long time ago. Time goes by, and I can't get that thread out of my head every time I think of her, or talk to her. But there was one conversation that I still needed to have with her. It wasn't going to be an easy one, and I knew that it would upset her, but I felt that I needed to have it. I reached out to her by text to see if she had time to meet up for a bit. She tells me that she can't because she has Bible study and college homework to do. I just said, okay, and figured I'd try to see her some other time. I got a text around 9:30 at night telling me that she wasn't trying to be rude, but that she was more inclined to do religious things from now on. I told her that the reason I wanted to meet up was because there was an important conversation that I needed to have with her, and that I felt that if I had it over the phone, she would hang up on me. She asked why, and I told her that it wasn't a happy topic. She called me and asked what I wanted to talk about. I was struggling to get the words out because I was afraid of her reaction. I started slowly and asked if she still cared about me, and if she would be honest with me. She said yes to both. I asked if she would promise not to hang up on me. She agreed. I tried to speak, but I felt as if my mouth was preventing me from doing so. After what felt like an eternity, I finally managed to speak out. The reason I wanted to have this conversation was because my ex had fully convinced herself that God and Jesus healed her into becoming heterosexual. She'd implied this to me when we were dating, but I don't think that she fully believed it yet. For context, she'd had sexual relationships with several women before we got together, and she told me that she was ready to marry one of those women until something caused them to break up. I told her that she's still bisexual, and always has been, because you can't remove an entire aspect of your identity just because you don't like it anymore. That's not how identity works. She denied my claim and said that while she was that way in the past, that the thought of being with women physically makes her sick now. So clearly she's changed. I said that I think she's experiencing delusions. Her study of the Bible, and more likely the people teaching it to her, made her think that gay relationships were wrong in the eyes of God, so she willed herself into being disgusted at the thought of being physical with women to cope with the shame she felt as a trauma response. She'd also mentioned to me in the past that she met someone in her church who healed himself into being straight through prayer, so she has evidence of this working, which just amplified her delusions. From here she doubled down that God healed her into becoming a better person, and that she never wants to go back to being the person she once was. I pointed out that the human brain is capable of unbelievable things, and that she still is that person no matter how much she tries to claim otherwise. Just to be clear before anyone tries to at me, conversion therapy is bullshit. It's been discredited and rejected by every mainstream medical and mental health organization for years. The Human Rights Campaign website has a comprehensive list of educators, mental health care groups, and human rights activists who've rejected this practice. It doesn't work, it's never worked, and never will work. The data proves this. It does nothing but promote the harmful idea that anything other than a heteronormative world is immoral, and anyone with empathy shouldn't support it. I wanted to ask if she felt ashamed of herself, or if she'd been shamed by those in her circle, but I couldn't get the words out because by this point I was on the verge of tears. But my intentions were to let all of my feelings out, and there was one last thing I had to tell her before we hung up. I had to let her know how she'd hurt someone close to me. One of my family members is bisexual, and my ex had told her that same-sex relationships were wrong, and that she couldn't be happy for her ex-girlfriend who married another woman because they're both going to hell. I don't know if she knew that my relative was bi or not, but she's told me that she never wants to see my ex again after that. And I can't blame her for that. When I mentioned how her words had hurt her, my ex said that she shouldn't be upset because she's married and should only care about her husband. I couldn't believe I had to explain this, but I said word for word, it doesn't matter that she's married to a man. She's still upset because he made her feel discriminated against. In response to this, my ex gave me the worst non-apology I've ever heard. She said, "I'm sorry she took it that way, but I won't apologize for promoting God's will." She asked me if she should talk to her, and I said not to bother. If that's what she planned to say, it's better that she says nothing. I don't even want to imagine how bad that conversation would go. After that, we finally brought our incredibly uncomfortable conversation to a close. I've since told this story to my sister, a few of my friends, and to a support group for former Adventists, and everyone who's heard my story has told me that I just need to let her go. They're probably right. I don't want to, but it seems like maybe the two of us are just holding on to each other in hopes that the other will change, even though I know that that's not going to happen. I don't know if there's a moral to this story, but if I had to search for one, I guess it'd be that death comes in many forms. Relationships can end for just about any reason, and I've just watched mine die in real time. I've actually spoken to my ex one time since that call, but it was just a short happy birthday text. Even though we haven't cut each other off yet, it's clear to me that our friendship died during that phone call, and whatever we have left with each other is just a husk of what once was.